Hello guys.
Hi guys, this is N.M.L.
Lives.
Hi guys, my name is Charles and I'll be talking about the feasibility of the project, the iteration 0 as well as the closing of which the camera will do that.
Hello guys, this is Kevin and I'll be doing the project initiation part, which is the second stage of the process.
Hi guys, my name is Jesse and I'll be giving the third stage, which is a release plan.
Oh, sorry, I'm late.
Wait. You know when you are late, you're gonna start down. By Manevik, you know.
Sorry, you can start the class all over again. I'm sorry, sir. My name is Mandlem Kosishes and I'll be doing iteration N.
Alright, I'll be talking about project feasibility for Agile project management. It consists of two activities, namely the project vision as well as the business case. A project vision is just a simple statement explaining the goals of the project itself. And the project owner is responsible for creating the project vision and just a little bit of input from the project team also. The business case, on the other hand, is a justification of a business proposal. In this case, the organization or the project owner, it should consider the overall mission of the project and the objectives as well as the IT needs. A business case must be comprehensive and easy to understand. It describes the project clearly and estimates the project costs and financial impacts, so to say. Questions that must be answered by the business case are, why are we doing this proposal, this business project, and how much will it cost and how long will it take? And we must also answer questions like the risk. How much risk will it affect, or will it be affected? And also we must know how to measure success for the business proposal and what other alternatives can this business proposal give or have on hand. Thank you.
The second step of the Agile project management process, project initiation. The set of activities necessary to design a new project and obtain authority. The first activity in project initiation is creating an Agile charter. The process develops the document that officially authorities the project to start and gives the project manager the authority to use resources. Creating the Agile charter requires the creation of a very flexible document that allows the team to respond to quickly changes. The second activity, assigning the project staff. The process of assigning the project staff consists of obtaining the Agile team necessary to complete project activities, such as developers, product owners, and Agile leaders are the necessary team members. The Agile team needs to be cross-functional and capable of working under time-boxed constraints to deliver a high-quality product. The third activity is to develop a project backlog. The Agile team's main focus is to deliver high-quality features as early as possible, at the same time to avoid or mitigate risks. The fourth activity, creating estimates. There are many techniques used on Agile teams to create estimates. Firstly is the affinity estimates one, the process of positioning the requirements into groupings. Secondly is the cost estimation. The last activity of project initiation is developing roadmap with story mapping. This is the final process in the project initiation phase. The Agile team story map is used to describe the method for selecting and grouping project features that are going into a particular release.
I'm here to talk about the release plan. The release plan consists of 3 phases, which is namely number 1, breakdown epic, number 2, poker planning, and number 3, to create a release plan. So number 1, breakdown epics. An epic is a mimed bodies of work with which can be broken down into a series of smaller bodies, also known as stories. In this session, each story is broken down into tasks in which teams will be given certain tasks to finish within a certain amount of time which they will be given. Number 2, poker planning. Poker planning is an estimation and planning technique which is generally based. To start a poker planning session, user stories must be read and described as features to the estimators. Each estimator holds decks of cards with values like 0, 1, 2, 5, 8, 13. Some may call it a Fibonacci sequence. Each value represents story points, numbers, units, or dates in which teams estimate. Now, when to engage in poker planning? Shortly after an initial product backlog is written, this session is useful in creating initial estimates, in scoping and sizing the project. Now, the third phase, create a release plan. A release plan acts as a product map, provide context and direction of product goals, vision, and expectation. Its approach to the product management, which takes into account the intangible and flexible nature of software development. The creative release plan consists of 4 steps, which is namely number 1, define your vision. By defining your vision helps as a guide subsequent decision features to prioritize and focus where the most. Number 2, rank the product backlog. Review the product backlog and rank the features. Rank the features to the most valuable one and the most to be focused on. Number 3, hold a release plan meeting. Gather all stakeholders once overall product vision has been outlined. Together in a release planning meeting to review the proposed plan. Add or edit plan as needed. Now the last one is finalize and share product release calendar. Finalize details. Make any last adjustment. Then the product release calendar with all stakeholders should be outlined, and all stakeholders must be informed and updated about the calendar.
Yes, now this is iteration 0. The goal here is to prepare for iteration number 1. This is just the warm-up phase. So in this phase, the project is initiated. Support and funding for the project is established also. Stakeholders, they are active and they are involved throughout the project. The team is also created in this stage. Then the Agile environment is also created. So the initial system architecture is then modeled in the end. 2 activities are played in this iteration. There's architectural spikes, and there's also we prepare for the iteration number 1, as I've said in the previous. So for spikes are just there to prove specific technological approaches. These technologies, they help prevent risks. Risks like, let's say for instance, they reduce costs. So these technologies, they help to actually estimate how much cost are we going to spend on a specific project. And also they help to estimate how long will the project take. So in this case, they help estimate the success of the business proposal as such, the project. And then for us to prepare for the iteration 1, the team as a whole, it must possess the team velocity. Team velocity is whereby all team members, they must engage at the same pace to working together in order to establish the project and so that the project can be a success. So overall, in this case, the iterations are repeated every day so that the project can be.
Iteration planning for iterations 1 to N. Iteration planning involves deciding upon the high priority user stories that will bring the most value to the customer. N represents the total number of iterations that should be completed so that the project can be viewed as complete. The iteration planning goal should be established, that is, the number of user stories to be completed during the iteration. But if the project is a first, the team velocity may not be established, because team velocity can only be established after they have completed several iterations and have obtained an average number of story points that can be accurately defined as its capacity. The development team is empowered to decide on the number of user stories for the iteration, and they must discuss their recommendations with the customer. During the iteration planning meetings, the customer or product owner has the responsibility to prioritize the product backlog and to indicate which user stories he would like to see in the iteration. The customer establishes the priorities for the iterations, then the development team has the final say based on the amount of time they believe they can complete the iteration in. Iterations 1 to N are considered to be the development iterations, and the goal is to deliver system functionality that meets or exceeds the customer's expectations and nothing less. These iterations are time-boxed into approximately 2-week time frames, meaning there is a deadline that the development team should meet. After iteration planning, we go straight to coding. According to Microsoft Inc., a common best practice on the Agile team is to provide the development team with sandboxes in which to develop code. A sandbox is just a fancy name for a respected technical environment with a well-defined scope. Sandboxes are said to be useful for reducing risk because they protect against technical errors. Some categories of sandboxes include development sandbox, of which is an environment where only the development team has access to the developed code for the product. Second, we have integration sandbox, which is an environment where code is integrated from all of the development activities to ensure that it will work well when integrated. Thirdly, we have a demo sandbox, which is a working code environment where demos can be carried out for the client. Fourthly, we have a text sandbox, which is a staging environment that is generally a replication of the project environment. Fifthly, we have a production, which is the live environment for the product. After the execution of acceptance tests, the Agile team should create test cases, followed by the execution of automated testing. Automated tests are used for test-driven development and acceptance test-driven development. Test-driven development is used to implement coding and testing cycles to ensure that the code functions as intended. The test is developed before the code, and when the code actually passes the test, the functionality is considered to be completed. ATDD, on the other hand, focuses on the business requirements and not the code, meaning at the end of the day, these tests are used to demonstrate that functionality is acceptable to the customer. Agile methods define done as when all stakeholders agree on what the work looks like for the project. And remember that when using Agile methods, the customer's input is highly regarded. The following step is answering the client's questions for sign-off. The project stakeholders, including the product owner, gather for a meeting to review the prioritized backlog items. The product's functionality is validated and participants ask questions and give feedback. After that, the customer has the final say as to the acceptance or rejection of a user story or requirement using the previously established acceptance criteria. After answering the client's questions for sign-off, the Agile team should prepare stories for the next iteration. During the iterations, there should be daily stand-up meetings. These meetings are usually 15 minutes max, where each member is asked these 3 questions. What have you worked on since we last met? What do you plan to complete today? And are there any obstacles in the way of completing your work? After that, the Agile team should update the bend down or bend up charts. These charts are used to show how much progress has been made on the Agile product. A bend down is the amount of remaining work that needs to be completed, whereas a bend up shows what has been delivered for the project. After the completion of all iterations, that is iteration 1 to n, there's another iteration that should be completed called iteration R. The purpose of iteration R is to deploy the product to the product environment. This iteration is separated from iterations 1 to n so that the development team can continue to build functionality for the next release and in order for the current release to be moved to production. The development team does the following activities during iteration R. They complete the project documentation, they do formal testing, they deploy the software for production, and lastly, they celebrate.